Okay. We have to wait a minute for people to like join and stuff. I wasn't expecting the horn.
That's my daughter. She was playing French horn.
I know. That's
Beautiful.
beautiful.
Yep. She gave us good introduction.
She did. Okay, I just found the button. Okay, there's people here. Hello, everybody. Okay, so do you want to just like run through the news first, or because I know what everybody wants to hear about. They want to hear about Novoselivsk. So, do you want to just do that first, Konstantin?
No, let's do it a bit later.
Okay. We'll make them wait. All right. Well, the biggest news over the past few days is obviously Soledar collapsing, which was unfortunate. I mean, it was always going to happen, but it didn't have to happen like this. But what can you do? There are conflicting reports about whether there's actually still fighting in Soledar. I personally think there's probably not, but Ukraine keeps saying that there is. I've heard from a bunch of people who are stationed near Soledar, like near Krasnopoplivka, and there's like this whole area around what's called Sil, I guess. And they basically said they lost it. And they were pretty disappointed about it, because they had built fortifications that they thought were strong enough to hold it for a while, and then it didn't. They just lost it like immediately. So that was kind of not great. The forces around here are mostly like special forces, and paratroopers, but they didn't hold on, I guess. Anyway, so south of Soledar, Russia is just kind of pressing out in every direction simultaneously. They're moving up towards Krasnopoplivka and up towards Rozdalivka and south towards Krasnohora and Blahodatny. At the moment, I think Ukraine holds all of these towns. I got news today, which I found extremely interesting, that I heard from someone who drove all of these roads today, delivering supplies to civilians. And they basically said that, I'm going to draw a little picture. They said that this road to Fedorivka is completely fine, that there's like nothing wrong with it. This road through Zenivka is also completely fine, and this road over here is completely fine. The road, like this area, is a nightmare. You don't want to go there, but that kind of makes sense because it's like the front line, right? So, but all of the other roads are totally okay, which I find somewhat surprising. But it was also really good news that Ukraine is at least defending these roads from artillery, mostly. They're defending it from the Russian artillery, which is really big. And similarly, these roads behind Bakhmut, all these roads are, for the most part, safe. Like, all these roads are safe. I've talked to people who have been on all of these roads, and in Ivaniska, It gets hairy there, and it's really bad around here. But that's like the front line. So, but everything else is totally safe to drive. And that's fantastic. That news made me really happy. So, yeah. So that's kind of the civilian report from Bakhmut, I guess. There's a Klishivka is a nightmare, and it's probably falling, if not fallen. The town itself doesn't matter very much. Well, I'll go back to this because we have a question. Yeah, these roads were safe to drive. I heard from people who are driving these roads. They went to basically all of these towns, like all of them. Like I'm looking through the list, like every single town on the screen right now they went to, and except for like Krasnohora, but they went through all of these towns, and all of them are drivable and relatively safe. One of them said the most dangerous thing is ice, and the second most dangerous thing is mud. But they said shelling was not a big deal. In this kind of area, near Fedorivka, there are some conflicting reports about these three towns in particular. Kuzminivka and Fedorivka and Perezna. But some people are saying that these towns are dangerous, and others say that they're totally safe. I heard from a guy who drove through these 4 towns several times today, just kind of going back and forth, and he said he had no problem all day driving. So these roads being drivable and usable without getting harassed by artillery is actually a pretty big deal. And it goes against a lot of the kind of what the Russians kind of want people to believe, that they are encircling Bakhmut and that all the roads are cut off. And then you talk to people who actually drive these roads, and they say the roads are fine. So, yeah. But back to Klishivka, or Klishivka, or I don't actually know how to say it. Is it Klishivka? Whatever. The town... One sec. I just got a message from Constantine. Oh. I should do that, Constantine. I should make a tweet. I'll do that in a second, I guess. Or I'll do it now. You say something.
All right. So, people, I don't have the control over a mob, but I will tell you that Bakhmut is not anywhere to be encircled. The loss of Soledar is, of course, is a tragedy, but it's not the end of the world. And people want to understand that, for example, 7 months ago or 8 months ago, we were talking about Russian troops being 30 kilometers from the Kiev city center. Right now, we're discussing town that is one of the on the eastern part in the eastern part of Ukraine, and that is has population of, I don't know how much population does Soledar has. 11,000 people. Let me check.
Yeah, I think it was something like that, somewhere around there.
Yep. So even though it may be a loss, it's 11,000. Just so it was wild guess, but it was right. So we were talking about Ukraine losing its statehood, And right now we're talking about a town of 11,000 people, which has not much strategic importance. But of course, it's sad, and of course, there are people who have died there. There are defenders who have died, but we will. This is not an end of the world. I'm sure Ukraine will retreat to more fortified positions, rebuild the defense line, and stabilize it. Because Soledar was unfortunately really fast, and it was probably, you can say that it was a mistake in the command. But this is a war. War goes two ways. People should always remember that. Not a single war was won only one way. Sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some. Yeah, please go.
And
Please go ahead.
I want to introduce John. We have a third host or guest or whatever he wants to call himself, and his name is John. John, do you want to say hi?
Hi, y'all. My name is John. I'm here with Andrew and Konstantin. First time appearing on this stream. I guess this is the second time it's gone live, right, Andrew?
This is like the fourth or fifth. I can't remember. I lost
Okay,
count.
I think it only showed the last one when I pulled it up on Twitch. Okay, so fourth or fifth. Um, I'm into physics. I study all kinds of different physics and applied physics things. Main interest is rockets, missiles, precision guided munitions, all that very, very fun stuff. So I will hopefully be able to provide some background information, some relevant context related to those kinds of systems, given some of the recent news items that we've seen over the past few days.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, we certainly have topics to talk about with missiles, and rockets. But yeah, let's keep going, I guess. Oh, and speaking of small towns, this Pidhradne town has a population of like 120 people. I just like pointing that out. Although losing it was kind of a catastrophe, but that's another story. Okay.
Andrew,
Yep.
I just I think check your email if you got a notification. I've sent you shared two videos with you. Since we have John here, he likes to talk about the precision. Those two videos will show some precision strikes, and I will have you guessing which weapon was used to do this. It's nothing super serious, but still, and it's never before seen video.
Okay. Let me get the videos.
Oh, now I'm all excited.
First, I have to ask, John, are you watching the stream?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I'm on a fairly small laptop and have a billion windows crammed open right now.
Okay. Okay. Let's I will put it on the screen.
The video I just so you can see this is one BMP-1 on the left that blew up, and there is a BMP-2
Yep.
on the right that did not yet blow up. So if you have your guesses which was used to do this, just drop them in the chat, and there is a second video continuation of this. It's not a super clear video because this is drawn from really galaxy, really filming from a really far away galaxy.
Oh, there's a third.
And so the BMP cooked off, yeah, and there's a third vehicle escaping. It was not direct hit, but it destroyed that BMP is destroyed as well. One has escaped, and we will see a group of Russian Mobics running away now when they saw their BMP cooked off. It's a short video, nothing super cool, but still it's...
I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, this was, we have Keith here that says Excalibur. Yeah, this was Excalibur.
And I'll play the video a second time. The first one and play it the second time so people can see a little better, or at least get a second chance at seeing it.
Yeah, this is the first video, or the second one.
This is the first one.
You can see, ooh, you see something is flying really hard, really high.
They got him.
That is a very, very nice hit.
So someone is asking how you can tell it's BMP2. Well, I don't know, probably because Twitch is a bit not showing me right now the best quality, but you can see the 30 millimeter gun pointing upwards there, and you can identify that that's the BMP2. Second one is the BMP2. The first one is BMP. One is, unfortunately, we cannot identify it because I don't have the full footage, but I was told by the guys who were actually making the shots, and I do believe them.
Yeah, that to me it's very obviously a BMP 2. It's definitely not a 3 because it only has one gun.
The threes also have a completely different hull form.
Yeah.
But yeah, you see it only has one.
I think
one barrel.
in the second video you can see it better.
Yeah, this is I have the second video.
Yeah,
up.
this is 30 millimeter gun.
Yeah,
Quite,
because
quite obvious.
the BMP2 has basically one skinny gun, and the BMP1 has one thick gun, and the BMP3 has like two skinny guns. That's
Yeah.
that's like that's the easy way to tell them apart. Okay, so
Someone is asking about T90M. I think there was a video of T90M, the longer one, released by someone. I think we can show it as well. You want me? Do you have it? I can share it with you if needed. It's been an open source. It's shared, but you will have to download it.
okay,
Because it's
just send it to me. Well, that T90 blowing up was pretty cool. That, and where was the where were those BMPs? Do you know where they were?
no, I cannot give you the location of those.
Okay.
I did not ask, and I did not. I could have asked, but did not. So I did not have time to geolocate. Yeah, this is the video. I think this is the full video with some nice music. This is T90M, 92nd Mechanized Brigade. Yeah, it's a better quality one. This is one tank, and this is another one which blew up. Yeah, some people say this was in the original post. They said it was 84, but I was told that this was not an 84. It was RAM. You know what RAM is, I hope. I think this is. I don't remember how it's how the abbreviation is translated, but it's a remote a mine that is deployed via 155 millimeter shells, and it's just a mine, and we use them to like preliminary to put it there, and Tan just drove over it and blew up. Maybe then it was hit by 84. Yeah, RAM. That's right. I was told by the battalion commander who shoots them, and one of the pilots who was in the taking part of it. So
It annoys me that I have to go moderate the chat. I wish people were just not assholes.
if you could make me admin, I would like ban this not a smart person a long time ago. But we don't know how to make people admins here.
And the acronym is, if my memory is correct, Remote Anti-Armor Mine System. That's the acronym for RAMS. Or RAMS is the acronym, I should say, for Remote Anti-Armor System, or Remote Anti-Armor Mine System.
Thank you. Andrew,
Okay.
are you here?
Okay, sorry. I was just banning that guy.
If y'all have a moment, Constantine, a question for you. How do you have any sense of how widely distributed RAMs are amongst Ukrainian artillery units? I know that there's obviously going to be a limited quantity compared to the standard 155 or 152 rounds, but are they available in reliable quantities at this point?
I don't think so. I cannot tell you too much, as you understand probably why, but I don't think they are available in the large quantities. And Andrew, don't hide the video. Let's, if you don't mind, I think we can geolocate it pretty easily. I can geolocate that lake.
Okay.
Let me share the coordinates with you. 1 second. I'll send it to you in the. And it's not like I consider it a secret drone. It's just I never asked them. I don't feel really, how you say, comfortable asking questions like those. So I've sent you the coordinates, and this is the lake in that picture. So based on that, I think we can geolocate it pretty accurately.
Right there.
Yeah, this is the lake, and if you switch to the terrain view, can you switch to the terrain view?
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, so you see if you go back to the video now, the form of the lake exactly like this, and we can create an azimuth and understand the direction where the tank is. If you go back to that video. Yep, you see it in the far. So it's like
so it's
between those two, yeah.
Yeah.
So it seems like it's right. There is a large field on the eastern side of the railroad in Novoselivsk.
Yeah.
So it
So it's
seems
like
this.
like right here.
We're still looking at yeah. Yeah, I think it's somewhere here. Maybe a bit different place, but I think it's somewhere here. It's because it would take me a bit more time to compare and to get the exact geolocation. But it feels like it's somewhere in this around this
Yeah,
field. Maybe.
that really seems right, because you see like this bend in the trees. That's kind of like a nice curvy bend. And then you see that here on the map as well, this nice curve.
Yep. Yep. So I think that's pretty much it. So
yeah,
that's the go ahead.
You had another tank video from roughly the same spot where the tank kind of went up this field and then down the road.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
this
thermal
is-
vision on the thermal drone. Yeah, we follow that. This is 22nd Russia, 27th Russian Brigade. They operate cams, and they've been using them in this area against 92nd Brigade pretty a lot. I have a question.
Yep.
If can you explain how this? I understand real humans talks about the RAM and how they work. How accurate are they? Once placed perfectly on the road, or because I don't know that. I have not used them, obviously, and I'm not an artillery, and I'm not into that stuff. So I think John may have some explanation here.
Right. So my understanding is that the rounds are not precision guided. So the actual shell, although it's really more so of a dispenser, is unguided. So you would expect accuracy or precision, I should say, similar to what you would get for other 155 rounds. So broadly, say similar to an M795, which is the current U.S. standard, or an M107, which is the older U.S. standard 155 round. And then, as it's depending on what the specific fuse setting is, at a certain distance above the ground, it will dispense a number of these mines. I believe the standard one is the two standard ones are the M718 and the M741 mine. They both have self-destruct timers of variable lengths. The 718 has a self-destruct timer somewhere greater than 24 hours. I'm not sure what the exact setting options are for it, and the 741 has a self-destruct timer of less than a day. And then in terms of the actual fusing on the mines, I'm not sure if it's just a simple direct contact or a direct pressure fuse with the in the mine, i.e., it just detonates when a vehicle rolls over it, or if it's a more sophisticated proximity or influence fuse, i.e., magnetic or a vibrational fuse. I want to say that if my memory is correct, it's just a contact or a pressure fuse of some kind on the mine.
Yeah, this we might Constantine had to go make some tea, but so we're gonna get back to this. But yes, this train station, I don't know if liberated is the right word, but Ukraine captured the train station. Russia has performed counterattacks, and they were all repelled. But we'll get more into that when Constantine comes back. He'll be back in like a minute, or like a few minutes. $100,000. That's a big number. Speaking of mines, Russia did a very stupid attack the other day near what's called Zenith. Zenith is a nuclear bunker that was part of this. I believe it was part of this airfield at one point, back in the Soviet times. But now Zenith is just a super fortified bunker. And it's considered one of the most fortified positions in all of Ukraine. Like, there might be spots more fortified, but they would be all like government secrets. Like, this is like the most fortified, like publicly known place. But anyways, all of this like yellow area, and also probably most of this red area here, is all a giant minefield. And the Russians decided to attack Zenith on a bunch of BMPs and tanks. I think yesterday or the day before, and they all died. It didn't go well. It was, they lost 7 BMPs and 2 tanks. Not a good idea. But if you look on the map around Zenith, I'm not sure exactly where, but like in this general area, you'll see all sorts of air type stuff. You'll see like really old radars and just all the sorts of things you would expect at like a military airbase.
I need to correct myself slightly for the Rams, if you don't mind, Andrew. The M718 and the 714 are not the mines themselves. Those are the designations for the projectiles. There's a number of different mines that can actually go in there, so it's referred to as FastCam family of scatterable mines. I believe the most common one, if I'm pulling up my CAT UXO data, I believe is the M70, and then there's a few other variations of them. They're all anti-tank mines of various descriptions. I believe most of them, again, have pressure contact fusing. And I want to say that there's some additional fusing methods, but I don't believe they're used when deployed as part of a RAM. There is also a family known as ADAM or ATOM, which is area denial artillery, which is essentially the anti-personnel version of RAM. I'm not sure how many ATOM projectiles we have in U.S. inventory. It was never really that widely used because the U.S. is given the whole cluster munition and mine issues in terms of the ethical perception of that. The U.S. tends to be kind of cagey about using anti-personnel mines, at least in recent decades.
Hey, thank you. Constantine's back.
I'm back.
Okay, so just since I'm in this Avdiivka area, there's a lot of news here that people don't really talk about that much because most people are more concerned about like Bakhmut or whatever. But just as a general lowdown of the Avdiivka area, Russia really wants to attack Krasnohorivka, and there's 2 Krasnohorivkas, but this is the one. There's another one south down here, but this northern Krasnohorivka, Russia really desperately wants to attack it, and they have not made any progress since like May. So
Do you have any confirmation of the attacks? Like any videos or just reports?
I don't have any videos or anything. I just know that these attacks are occurring like every single day. They're reported by the Ukrainian government, by the Russian government. They're just reported by pretty much everybody. But I don't have any video of it. I know at one point, the Russians had moved up to this train, these train tracks, and they controlled kind of this area of the train tracks. And I'll circle it. They controlled like this area at one point. and they were trying to move south from here, but it didn't work out, and eventually they had to pull out. So I'm not sure exactly where they are now. Like they might be in this forest. I'm not really sure, but they really want to take Krasnohorivka. It's a very high priority. Similarly, there's another town which isn't even labeled on the map, but it is here. It's right here. It's called Vesely, and that's Krasnohorivka. And they really want to take both of these towns, but they just have not been able to. Because these two towns are anchoring the northern flank of Avdiivka. So their goal, and you see like you see people make these maps all the time that they're gonna flank here and flank there and everything's gonna fall, but they have not been able to move an inch in months. So they've tried to take Kamyanka lots of times, no progress. They've tried to move up the south of Avdiivka, which they call like the face of it, I guess. No progress. Zenith is like one of the most fortified places in the Ukraine. No progress there. And then obviously they've captured the Pitny, and they're trying to take Vodiana, but even here, the town kind of extends out, kind of like that. And even here, they've barely been able to scratch the surface, because like Ukraine kind of controls this box. So they're stopping Russia from being able to move up here, and then the town itself is fortified. So there's been very low progress in Vodiana. And then Pervomaisky, they've had like negative progress. Like that at one point they controlled like half the town. Like Russia was like here, and then they're here, and then they're here, and now they're here. So they've gotten their butt kicked in Pervomaisky. So, and then there's Novelsky, which they have had some progress over time, but it kind of halted. These defensive positions here and here were major defensive strongholds for Ukraine, and Russia took both of them. And then they were declaring like some giant victory, and then they haven't moved since. So, and that was they took the northern one, which I think was called Oasis, in December 14th. Although they had taken it and lost it and taken it and lost it, so I think they actually took it in like October, but then most recently in December. So yeah, this is kind of the Avdiivka area that no one really talks about, mostly because nothing super interesting is happening. But I guess that's kind of the news of the Avdiivka area, which may become a bigger thing soon. Russia could potentially start pushing more guys here, because frankly, there's just not that many people attacking in these attacks. Like a few hundred. Like there's like in each of these towns, there's like a few hundred Russians. Like in the Pitny and Vodiana, there's like a few hundred, like maybe 200 or 300 in each town. So they can't really push that many into an attack. Maybe like 30, 50 or something. But it's possible that they could push more people here and have larger attacks, and then maybe there might be movement, but who knows. And then Ukraine will probably move people here as well. Regarding Klishivka, I have Google Earth open, so we can look at it kind of in 3D, because the area makes more sense in 3 dimensions than in 2 dimensions, because there is a rather large hill, and the town is kind of in the valley, and then there's a hill overlooking it, and the hill is mostly controlled by Ukraine, although the Russians have taken part of the hill. They're kind of climbing it slowly. But when you look at it, the town itself really is almost irrelevant. The hill is the only thing that matters. Obviously, holding the town helps defend the hill, so that it would be nice to hold the town, but losing the town doesn't really jeopardize the defensive position too much. But I imagine
elevation drop from the town and the hill is around 200 feet or more at different places.
Yeah.
So they're trying to, as I understand, they're trying to enter the hill through south.
Yes.
And they had some moderate success over there.
Yeah,
but it's not yet. It's anything that can break here. It's one of the fighting points, important ones, but I don't think they had so far. Russians could have claimed any real success here.
No, they've pushed up to this tree line here, which is, getting towards the top of the hill, like it's kind of uneven ground, and then they kind of pivoted and went into Klishivka from this kind of southern flank. So that's kind of, so I from what I understand, I don't have total confirmation, but from what I understand, Ukraine had a defensive position somewhere in the south of Klishivka, I imagine near this forest, and Wagner, they kind of charged into it, like charging down the hill into it, and they took this defensive position. And when that position collapsed, fighting went into the center of the town. And I really don't know who controls the town at this point. I imagine the Russians probably control the town. Either that or it's becoming a no man's land. Because I think ultimately, if Ukraine can hold this position on the top of the hill and at this tree line, I don't imagine Klishivka would be a place you would want to be, because they're just going to get hit by mortars and artillery constantly. So yeah, the Ukraine is pushing reserves towards this area. They've pushed some into the southern part of Bakhmut near Opitny, and they are pushing some towards Klishivka as well. And they've also pushed reinforcements into this area around the garbage dump, where the Russians are trying to move up this street, which I think is called like Fedorivka Street or whatever it's called. They're trying to move up this street, and Ukraine is blocking them from moving up the street, even though Russia controls this gas station at the northern part of the street. But this middle area, Ukraine is not letting Russia link up, basically. So this kind of residential area is kind of important at the moment.
Yep.
Okay, so I don't know. Is there anything more to be said about Bakhmut? I mean, there's
people are asking what happens if it falls. I would say that it's not nothing good. We don't like losing. No one likes losing land, but there is another defensive line. that is gonna be taken, and it's just another, it's nothing. The line is pretty stable. It's not like it's a huge breakthrough and it's all over now. No, it's how you say this? Kramatorsk and oh god, I forgot.
First, Chasiv Yar. Russia is going to have to fight through Chasiv Yar first, and Chasiv Yar is no slouch. Like, this is a major fortification. Like, this is a multiple fortified towns. Like, you can just see them on the map. These are 4 fortified towns that basically touch each other. This is going to be a strong position.
Andrew.
Yeah, and go ahead.
I was just going to briefly say what Constantine was referencing about another defensive line is that if you pull up a topo and you look at Chasiv Yar, it is situated at the crest of a very large ridge line that runs north to south. So from about Chasiv Yar all the way up north to the bank of the Seversky Donets River. If Bakhmut falls, Ukrainian units can simply be withdrawn to that ridge line, and that would provide a very, very formidable geographic obstacle to any further Russian advance, and they would likely be checked somewhere east of Sloviansk and Kramatorsk in the worst possible case scenario.
Yeah, this Chasiv Yar is designed to be the major fortification. Bakhmut is not the major fortification. It is Chasiv Yar.
And Bakhmut have not, like, it's really far from. I don't believe that Bakhmut will fall anytime soon. Even if it does, it will take Russia probably another 3 months if they're successful. But what you must remember, we've seen many videos of Russian losses around Bakhmut. You cannot just Russia cannot afford taking land at the expense of the exchanging land for exchange a small town for 10,000 people. They just can't afford it. That this, no matter if they mobilize once again, the quality of mobilization is going to be lower and lower each mobilization. So their equipment will be lower. They will have less. They will have less ammunition to fight there, and it's just and this only to take Soledar and Bakhmut. I mean, it's gonna take them 20 years to take Donbass, and at the same time, we've seen the news, right? Ukraine is getting some Bradley IVs, getting some new tanks, Challengers too. Of course, it's not huge numbers, but it's the beginning. And if Ukraine gets 12 Challengers or analogous tanks per month, it's pretty good. It's not like great, but it's a lot. And what Ukraine needs right now, why we don't see, for example, too much counterattacks around Soledar, is because we have a limited number of tanks. There is nothing to replenish. If we lose tank, it's really hard to rebuild it and get a new one. So as soon as we establish the supply of the tanks, then you will see much more counterattacks, and those counterattacks for Russians, they're going to be devastating, because right now they know that we have lack of tanks, and we're very careful with counterattacks because we are really, really afraid to lose the equipment. And if we get specifically better tanks such as Challengers and Leopards, it's gonna change. It's gonna change a lot.
I think we have a question about whether Ukraine will be able to do an attack in the south. I think they will be eventually able to do this, but not for months. Like it would be like spring or summer.
Is a month, right? Getting the tanks is not a day or two.
Yeah, I mean, even if you gave all of the vehicles they've been promised, if you gave them like just today. Like if they just already had them fully trained and ready to go, they still wouldn't be ready to attack yet. So
yeah, there is logistic, there are reserves, and there is also, you must understand that we have to try them first, because these tanks, new tanks, you have to have different strategy with them. They are designed to use in a different way. We have not used them, and no one actually did. Like if we talk about Desert Storm, where they were used last time, it was totally different story, right? It was you were fighting against army that did not have against Iraqi army that was just, there was air superiority, there was helicopters flying over, there was complete dominance. Right now, we will not get like 500 of them or even 1,000 of them, and we will not get air superiority. So we will have to, and Luzovic tank can be used as propaganda really bad. So we're gonna be careful, and it's not gonna take a day or two or even a week after we receive them. It's gonna take planning. It's gonna take proper development of the tactics. It's gonna take probing. Like if you see Russian T90Ms, they're afraid to use them. They really are, because you've seen what happened in the video. For example, they two tanks charged to reinforce their positions in Novoselivsk. One of them got destroyed instantly, and that's it. They're gonna lose another one, and they have only 40 of them. Well, maybe right now it's a bit more, maybe 80, but it's a lot to lose in one small town of Novoselivsk.
And I just want to point out that there's a lot of fortified positions in this south. Like I've been marking them. Like today, there's news of a ammo warehouse in this mine, and another fortified position up here. But there's deep fortifications, and in order to ready, they get this whole area ready for a large scale offensive, Ukraine just has to, systematically destroy all this stuff with their long range artillery. So, and that's just going to take time. I fully believe that they will eventually be able to weaken this southern flank enough to attack, but it's not going to happen overnight. Like this is going to take 4, 6, 8 months or something.
Yeah, it takes time. Like we haven't even, unless you're gonna sacrifice thousands and thousands of people, it takes a lot of time. And what you must understand that Russians, like I've said, exchanging 10,000 of people for a small town is not a Ukrainian strategy, and it's not a winning strategy. Well, you can see like short-term breath of air for Russians, like, oh, we finally took one town. Like the euphoria from this victory is going to go away in a matter of days, and you will still need to get 10,000 people more. But those people who have returned from this, they will tell stories. The morale is going to be lower. The people are going to be less motivated, and it's not going to go well. So to take this, you got to have a better strategy. And the better strategy is, proper advanced high precision weapons, proper tactics, proper motivation, great intelligence, and this is what Ukraine has. We just and when we get more equipment, you will see this happening, but it's going to be happening slowly. You've seen, for example, Kherson, how it was liberated. It did not happen overnight, over a week. It took a lot of time, and it took a lot of losses as well, because it's not something that can be done easily, because war is war. People don't try to think that every Russian is completely clueless and every commander is drunk and don't know what he's doing. If that was the case, the war would have been over. They learned, and they are fortifying positions. They're learning. They get in some equipment. They have drones flying. They building the communications. But yeah, they lack motivation. That's what we can use, and they lack precision as well. Only most of them are drunk. Well, at the front lines, of course, there are people who are drunk, and those people usually make most of the information front. Because, for example, if a unit serves and serves well, you don't hear anything about it. If you hear the guy, if someone gets drunk and starts recording some stupid videos, then everyone knows about it, and it takes only one guy to do this. So keep these things in mind, and they know what they're doing. It's not as easy as people think. It's not a matter of give us 10 tanks and we're gonna win. It still will require a lot of sweat, blood, and gore.
Yeah, and I just want to point out that as I hover my mouse around, and all of these little polygons show up. Each of these polygons is like 1 day of attacking, or at least it's changes made in 1 day. So just imagine like each of these is probably hundreds. Or some of them maybe thousands of wounded Russians. So, and if you ever go to my map, you can click on them, and it'll tell you what day these all happened. It's like, just for example, going from here to here took a month. So.
Yeah, people ask about what's going on in my house, and yeah, that's my daughter practicing. It's not violin, it's viola, actually.
Practice makes perfect. Okay, so
Yep. Do we have any? We have John here. Maybe he knows. He watches stuff like that. Do you know any news about German tank deliveries? Because they had a defense minister change, maybe that had any effects on their policy.
So I haven't seen anything about Germany officially granting a re-export license to Poland or any of the other countries that operate Leo 2s. My understanding is that if there is an official announcement, it will probably be made either on Friday, January 20th, this Friday of about 3 days from now, or sometime immediately after. That is, on Friday will be Ramstein, I believe 8, so that will be the 8th, I guess, convening of the Ramstein series of meetings, 45 or so countries that are supplying various forms of military aid to Ukraine. There are expected to be some major announcements there. The UK already announced their major package, the details of it, I believe yesterday, including the Charlie 2s, a couple hundred armored fighting vehicles, and APCs of various descriptions, and a whole lot of other good kit, a lot of artillery rounds, and just good stuff all around. So I would imagine there's probably going to be some pretty significant announcements from the US, potentially from Germany on the Leo 2s, and hopefully some other stuff from some of Ukraine's other allies as well. And then I believe we'll get some more details on the third Patriot battery that the Netherlands is sending as well.
Well, we've getting news on the Leo 1 first. Jeez.
Have y'all seen anything about the Leo 1s? I mean, I've seen it discussed in an academic sense, but I haven't seen anything material, actual material discussions that they are under consideration.
I have seen discussion, but I don't know how official it was. I don't know who would supply them. I know that Greece has a bunch that are
100 or so. So do the Turks.
Well, I don't
Well,
really
actually, I'm not
trust
sure
the
the Turks
Turks.
do.
But
The Turks have a lot of the M60s, I think, remaining. I can't remember if they ever operated the Leo 2 now that I think about it. But yeah, the Greeks have 500 something. The main thing with the Leo 1s, I mean, I can see them being useful, but they would have to be used not as a main battle tank, not as they were designed. They would have to be used as something more along the lines of, say, an AMX 10 RC, because they just don't have the survivability to be able to operate as a main battle tank, be it of a Russian, Soviet origin or of a Western origin. They just do not have the survivability to be able to effectively operate like that. So they may very well have their place in the Ukrainian army, but it's just not as a main battle tank.
well, I know that Greece has a whole bunch that are modernized to the the latest standard of the
Are you
Leo
talking
one.
about Leo ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on this because people laugh, and I would suggest, yeah, it has a great use, and it can be used. Trust me, any weapon, even from like 30s, can be used as long as it does not break and as long as it works. But you have to have proper tactics for it. For example, if absolutely new tank, new best tank drives over a landmine or anti-tank mine, it's gonna usually blow up. And same if you hit it with 155 millimeter round, it's gonna blow up as well. So it's really about the tactics, and the usage for Leo ones would be probably arm like motorized brigades. We have motorized brigades and we have mechanized brigades. So you can imagine giving the lighter tanks to the lighter brigades, and it would greatly expand the capabilities and really reinforce those brigades. And at the same time, keeping the MTB such as Leo 2 for the more heavier brigades, such as tank brigades. We have, I think, 8 right now tank brigades. And mechanized brigades as well. So it has use. It's not just, don't think that one weapon is gonna, you don't build around one single weapon. It's a combined arms war, and if one of your motorized brigades now is reinforced by good armor that can withstand, for example, RPGs, then, well, you have you developed an additional capability, and now you can hold the line that previously you could not. So keep this in mind, and it's not perfect, but it's a solution on TDF. Someone is saying. And when you talk about MT12s are used almost in every brigade still. And yeah, so it's just a matter of tactics and expanding the capabilities of the given unit.
I I just got a message that Rheinmetall has stated that the German Leopard 2s will not be ready until 2024.
So I believe I will need to go check my DMs. Scholes made some statement about that, and then I want to say that Rheinmetall. Ah, yes. The Rheinmetall, I believe, released a statement that they could have 10 to 15 refurbished Leo 2s ready by this year, and then potentially more if vehicles are taken directly from Bundeswehr, existing Bundeswehr inventory.
I just find that hard to believe for Germany to do that. I don't know.
Well,
They
I
could.
would say it's not that bad, right? I remember when we were discussing the Gepards, those anti-aircraft tanks. It took them lots of time, but it's still there. We still got it. There are problems with ammunition, of course, but we still got them. So, and there are other countries like we discussed. There is Poland that has them. There is Finland that has some. There is Spain that has some. and I'm sure there are like 20 other countries that have them and can contribute a bit. So, like I've said, this is a good tank. There is also some amount of older Soviet tanks available being bought out from the African countries mostly right now and being refurbished. So it's just imagine you have Ukraine needs the steady flow. Don't try to think of it that Ukraine needs this huge one time deal to give it 100 million tanks. It's a steady flow, so we need a number per month. We need to know that we can, if one tank gets destroyed, there is another one that we can get. And this is the idea of it. And if it's in 1 year, well, let's hope before that 1 year we will have other countries sharing the tanks and given like today it's gonna be, let's say, Poland given a squad, like a company of tanks. Tomorrow it's gonna be next month it's gonna be Finland. Then the Spain can give. I think Spain wanted to give 40 tanks pretty long time ago. Yeah, go ahead.
This comment is like, the Italian tanks don't work. Trust me. I
I have someone that I can ask about the Italian Leo ones. They won't get back to me quickly, but I know somebody that I can ask about the Leo ones that would know the Italian Leo ones.
I trust this guy in the comments. I also don't trust the Italian army.
I mean, Italy does have the Ariete, but I mean, there's only, I want to say they only have 200 of them in inventory. It's not many, so I can't see them willingly forking those over, just given the small number that they have in inventory. The situation there would depend on how the program to select a successor goes. The info that I was sent, and I don't think this was made public, but this was the general discussion within the Italian defense community, was that they wanted to essentially triple the size of their armored force, or at least that was the proposal from their defense minister, go from 200 to 600 main battle tanks, if I remember correctly, and they were looking at the Panther, the KF-51, I believe, which is the new proposal from Rheinmetall. So if they were able to put in orders for those or for some other tanks, then maybe, but in the meantime, I don't see much armor coming out of Italy.
No, I don't either. Unless it's like the Shintaro, because they have a bunch. I believe they're retired now, but other than that, I don't really see it.
Yeah, they're trying to replace the Centauro 1s with the Centauro 2s, and they're trying to expand the overall size of their fleet there. So that's potentially an option there. They could send some of the Centauro 1s, backfill those with additional orders for Centauro 2s, or hell, they could just send some Centauro 1s and Centauro 2s.
I think they only have like 10 Shintaro 2s.
Well, I mean, it's combat testing. What can I say? And I mean, allow them to maybe upstage the French, shall we say?
Well, I would like to see Italy do something, but I don't know. And also, never mind. I don't want to get into that. But the Leopard 1 is a much better tank than people are giving credit, because the Leopard 1A6 is it's a good tank. It's up armored. It has a good gun. It has good ammo. It has really good fire control system. One thing about its turret is that it's designed to just eat 30, like it eats 30 millimeter rounds for breakfast. Like they just bounce off. Like even tanks with better armor don't take the rounds as well, because it has like its optics and whatnot are all like super reinforced to survive 30 millimeter rounds.
I mean, I think like I said earlier, I think the Leo 1 could definitely be useful in some role. It's just the issue is if you start trying to employ it the same way that you would a T-64, a T-72, T-80, T-90, or any Western main battle tank, then you run into issues there because it just does not have the survivability that a modern main or vaguely modern main battle tank does. So there's probably a place for it. Again, I imagine it would be something along the lines of an AMX 10RC or a Centauro. But it would require a new tactics and doctrine to be adopted to use it effectively.
It would be really good against BMPs.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt.
So, Constantine, do you want to talk about?
And keep in mind, it's not only BMPs, and don't try to compare like a tank against another tank. Imagine you have infantry position where you don't have some armor. That happens a lot. And imagine that a lot of positions you have to have like infantry dug in, and you have your tanks hidden far behind. And when the combat starts, those vehicles, they come into the combat. And sometimes it does not happen because they break. Sometimes artillery lands on them, or sometimes there is a lack of those vehicles. So imagine that you have now your choice to take this position, run on it on your feet, or have a Leo 1 tank support that you can go behind, and which has 105 millimeter cannon, and it can shoot 80 rounds that can actually destroy a fortified machine gun position. It can destroy any enemy position. Basically, it can suppress anything. And what are you going to choose? Having nothing, or are you going to choose having Leo 1 with you? And considering the scale of the front, like the length of the front line, you can imagine how many tanks that are needed there. It's not 20, it's not 500, and even if Ukraine will not get the needed number in any way. It's gonna be, we're talking about thousands of tanks. We're talking about like 4,000 or 5,000 tanks to properly cover according to the military doctrine that is used. So it's not gonna happen. And having Leo tank instead of having a pickup truck can be a game changer here. So keep this in mind, and don't try to find one wonder weapon that's gonna fix everything for you. It's not gonna happen. Sometimes if you have a sword and you are right in the right spot, it can be just as lethal as absolutely the latest super pooper missile. Keep this in mind. So you have to have proper tactics. You have to know how to use it, and there are great tactics to use even older tanks, because it's still an armor and still has a mobile gun. And as long as it hits anything up to probably newer and it can take out probably T-72 as well. We've seen 30 millimeter chain guns taken out and close distance T-72. So I'm sure sub-caliber 105 millimeter gun can also do that.
It can. It definitely can.
Yeah, so the key here is the condition of those tanks, if they were properly maintained, if there is the engine is running, the engine is efficient, if the optics are upgraded, if the radio communication right communication system is installed, and if there is like explosive reactive armor that you can strap on it. And it's pretty easy, just welding a couple of blocks of it on it. So it's useful tank. Just have to find the right spot on it for it. And I tell you, if I give you AK-74 or AK-74 and throw your squad against E-72 or Leo 1, you will not care much, It's still gonna be you against the US 74 against AK-74 against the tank.
It would be funny to have
Awful.
Jerem on here.
Yeah.
Please get us the crazy Serb.
I'm surprised he hasn't volunteered for Wagner yet.
So I'm guessing that in addition to being a tanky, Garaman is also a Serbian nationalist, I assume, just by logical deduction.
I imagine so.
Okay, because he lives in Austria, right? I just want
Yeah.
to highlight the irony of that.
Yeah, it's yep. Yeah. Anyway, I don't really want to talk about him, but anyway, so Novoselivsk. What do you want to say, Konstantin, about this town?
Could you repeat, because you sounded like a robot for a second.
Novoselivsk.
Yeah. What's up?
What do you want to say about this town?
So this town was liberated, or what's left of it was liberated recently, like a day or two ago. That's where we've seen those T-90s, T-90Ms trying to counterattack. They failed at it. There was a counterattack coming through. You see this small triangular here. You see it on the where your blue arrow is pointing a bit to the east. You see the triangular.
Yeah.
Russians tried to launch around I think 40 people counterattack. A group of them they were met with artillery around this triangular. They run away a bit to the north, then they run away back to Kuzemivka, and right now this area up to the where it's yellow. I don't think there are any of our positions. We're not gonna uncover the positions, but it's has fire control and general control by Ukrainian troops now, and there are no Russian forces. They were forced to retreat. There was a battalion over here that was kicked out. It just took off and left. Then they tried, like I said, another. It left not because it didn't like staying there. It left because it was getting its ass kicked for quite some time. And there was attack by. Like they tried to counterattack, they failed at that, and they retreated. Right now, main Russian positions in this area, they have fortified positions in Kuzemivka, as I understand. But if you zoom out, can you zoom out a bit?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, too far. So you see now Golny to the east. No, go north, back north.
Okay.
Go back north. There is now Golny to the east from Kuzemivka.
Yeah. All right. This town, right?
I'm waiting for.
I know. It takes a few seconds.
No Golny. Yeah, I'm sorry. There is a lag problem on the Twitch.
Yeah,
no
cool.
Golny, and there is another one a bit close to it. I don't remember which one. Let me check the map as well. That's where Russian main reinforcements are staying, and that's where they sending them into the Kuzemivka and Volodymyrivka to basically fight there. Yeah, and this is another problem that we need more high-range artillery and the means of reconnaissance for live correction of fire. And Ukraine needs drones for that, and they're pretty hard to get.
Yeah. So to sum it up, And I think my map is too friendly to the Russians. I should probably move this gray area back, huh? So, Ukraine has captured Novoselivska. They've established fire control over all of the territory around Novoselivska. And I'm going to move to the 3D look because it's more clear looking at this in 3D. Because you see there's a big hill on the other side of this train track is a big hill. So Ukraine controls the train station and they have fire control over all of this territory around the train station. The Russians have tried to counterattack and they have failed. So Novoselivska is completely held by Ukraine at this point. And why this matters... did I say anything wrong?
No, go ahead.
Okay. And why this matters is that this is a valley behind Novoselivska. It's all these other towns are in the low ground. And this valley more or less goes to I'm gonna point it so north is up again. Goes to Svatove in the south. So all of this
and it's not only the Kuzemivka, it's the entire if you hover over the Novoselivska and basically the western side of the highway, you can see the elevation, and the elevation on the side is so
it's about it's like 190 meters.
Yeah, so and the bottom of it, like the other side, the eastern part where Russians are right now, it's all around 400 feet, 400 to 500 feet. So it's a pretty good elevation, and there are positions here that allow direct control, so direct aim. So you can imagine you can have a tank that would roll up to the high ground, shoot it, roll back, and it can go on days and days and days. And you can have groups. You can have MT-12s firing as well. You can have ATGM teams looking for enemy armor, and holding this area is gonna be pretty hard for them. I see it. So not like, and of course, if Ukraine would have I don't know, hundreds of tanks, we would exploit it. I don't know what's gonna happen next, but it definitely opens up new theater of war that Ukraine can exploit, and make, at least if not exploit, make it really expensive for Russians to hold.
And simultaneously to this, these other towns south, all of these the towns immediately south are all also in danger. Jezrelna, or I don't actually know how to say his name, but okay, that's really hard for me to say. But this town is getting clobbered by Ukrainian artillery. There have been a lot of videos of this recently. It's not a very big town, as you can see. There's like tens of houses, but it's getting clobbered, and I imagine Ukraine will move through here soon-ish.
They will probably pull out of it. I think they're gonna pull out of it themselves.
Yeah, but this and these two towns, I like this middle one. I have no idea what's going on here. I just have it marked as a gray area because I have no idea. And then the Pidkuchansk is more or less abandoned, I think, from what I understand. So this is like a big gray area. So it's not just Novoselivsky where things are happening, although that is the most success at the moment. But all of these other towns are also in significant danger at this point. and this is getting really close to Svatove. Like, like literally, there are no other towns between these towns and Svatove.
And can you know what we can do is, can you take and measure from the Novoselovsky, just to understand, to measure distance to Svatova?
Okay, so to the middle-ish, it's about 18
To
kilometers.
the outskirts. Yeah.
To the outskirts,
So-
it's about 14, 15 kilometers, or 13 maybe, depends on where you want to count it.
And from Jrelna and Kolomychiha?
It's about 10 kilometers, about 13 to the middle of the city, and about 10 to the outskirts.
And key thing here is that there are, as Andrew have pointed out, there are no towns between it. So there are fields that are pretty hard to cross. So it's not like, oh, we're at Svatova right now, but it's those are the right steps to get there. And holding positions in the fields is much more complicated than holding them in the towns. Not only because of the houses and like places to hide, but simply because living in the field as an infantryman is much more hard, especially in the winter, than doing so in the town. Even if it's the destroyed town, you still have basements usually there. You still have some houses with the roofs. You can hide from wind, and it's really you can hide a lot from the UAVs. In the field, especially right now in the winter when there is no leaves, it makes things much harder. So this can be exploited. I don't know if it's going to be successfully exploited. Once again, the Russians are fighting back. They're not giving up. Every inch is taken really, really hard, but it's a right step forward.
And the issue for the Russians now is that they have so many different places in this area. I'm just talking about this one area. There's so many different places where things are going wrong that it may be difficult for them to address all of the problems, because they have to address Kuzmivka, they have to address all of these other towns I don't know how to say, and so if they start having to fight these field battles, it gives Ukraine more opportunities to attack, like more angles they can go. They can go down the valley, they can go through the fields, they can go down the river. There's just more options for Ukraine and fewer options for Russia. Okay, so and then talking about Kremena, the latest news that I've heard from Kremena is that Ukraine is between 1 and 2 kilometers from the city, and that is about as far away as they have been for about a month or two. So I know there's been a lot of stories about like Ukraine getting closer, and maybe they are getting closer, but like I heard today that we got closer to Kremena. We're 1.5 kilometers away now, and I thought to myself, but you were 1.5 kilometers away 2 months ago. But anyways, so long story short, I don't know how much is actually changing in this area. I don't. Maybe Constantine, you have heard things that I have not heard.
1 second.
Okay.
So I've spoken with my friend there right now, Vitaly. He's on the Twitter, by the way. Not very active there, but they managed to. They did not manage to move their position, but another position adjacent to them, where the airborne air assault brigade is fighting, they managed to move forward. So they are moving slowly. At some point, he said they usually move around 100, on average, 150 meters per rotation, and rotation take up to a week.
Okay.
But it's, once again, it's just, he's not like a commander looking at the map and giving me information. It's just, his feelings of the average grunt.
Yep.
So, but they're moving. I know that they taken, of course, losses as well. It's not. It's really hard. But they're getting constantly shelled. They use those, I think, flashé, or how you call it. The Russians are using flashés against them all the time. Yeah, and their car is almost like he said, like medieval warfare, in the arrow punched with arrows everywhere. But yeah, they're slowly but steadily moving.
Yeah, when I say they haven't really moved, I mean people have been saying that Ukraine is literally fighting inside of Kremenat, and like they've taken parts of the city already, and that is not accurate. I have seen no evidence of that. I think it's completely crazy that people are saying that. From what I understand, and you can correct me, they are moving through the forest towards Kremenat, and not just that, but they're like moving towards Dubrova and all of these other smaller towns that I never remember the names of. But there's all these little tiny settlements, and they're moving, but they're not. They're not like assaulting the city. Like the city's not about to fall.
But do you have any news from Dubrova? There was a video released by 1+1 channel, I think, of the 80th Brigade, by the 80th Brigade, and it was geolocated. Do you know anything about that?
I don't remember seeing this. No, I mean I may have seen the video, but I don't remember seeing a geolocation for Dubrova. Although I'd be very curious, do you remember if it was in the eastern part of Dubrova or if it was in the western part?
I'm looking for it right now. There is this guy Dan, just like you.
Because I've heard like 2 or 3 days ago that the Russians occasionally enter the eastern part of Dubrova. They don't control it, but they move through it every once in a while. And the western part of Dubrova, like Ukraine moves through there. So that's been my understanding. I have not seen anything to contradict that. But I could be wrong. I can't see everything.
1 second, let me.
Yeah, from what I understand, the Russians are in the eastern Dubrova, although I do not believe they control those positions. They just kind of like move through it.
Yeah, I sent you a tweet. I did not pay too much attention to it, but it's if you read it, it was about 90th Brigade, 19th Air Assault Brigade, and they geolocated where it was shooting, so they confirmed the Russians are in Dubrova. But it's not. It's someone said it was. I think from close fire, some damage from the closer fire. I don't know.
Where did you send me this? I'm looking. Oh, I see now. Okay. Okay. So, while I look
You
at this,
probably see it.
I think I have, but while I look at this, I just have one question for John while he's here.
Dude.
I was just curious if you have anything to say about the while I find it, the X-22, or this the because you tweeted out a few things today, about the attack profile of the missile, and I'm just curious if you could explain it, how the missile works, and what its payload
So-
is, and all those sorts of things.
Right. So the KH-22 and the KH-32, those are originally Soviet, now Russian air-launched cruise missiles. They were primarily or initially designed for a anti-shipping role. They sort of evolved into a few other variants following its initial introduction to service. They developed an anti-radiation development, more or less. It's an anti-radiation missile that targets sources of radio emissions. They evolved a land attack capability. I'm still not clear if they evolved that land attack capability onto an existing variant or if they separated that into a different variant. But the two main original ones were the KH-22A, which is the anti-shipping one. It has a active radar seeker, and then I believe some of the land attack derivatives have an INS, an inertial navigation system. And then the the KH-22P has a passive radar seeker, so that's the anti-radiation variant. There's also the KH-32, which is a more recent modernization of the KH-22. Basically, it takes the very old or vintage 60s liquid-fueled rocket motor and replaces it with a more modern liquid-fueled rocket motor from the 90s, early 2000s. There aren't that many of them. They're mostly still KH-22s. They only upgraded, in my understanding, a couple dozen to the 32 standard. The 32 was what was used to strike the Mall in Kremenchuk. So that was two KH-32s. They likely struck the Mall because the Mall was more or less a large rectangular prism with very tall, flat-faced walls. As a result, the active radar seeker likely picked it up as the largest radio contrast object in its field of view and just homed in on that autonomously because of that. So obviously that's one of the, from a precision standpoint, that's one of the downsides of using an anti-shipping missile for land attack, but it's the Russians, go figure. So in terms of the general flight profile, the KH-22, there's different ways to tweak. There's different settings for the flight profile that can be selected, but the general behavior that all of them more or less follow is once they are launched from a Tu-22M3, so a backfire C bomber, they will obviously they'll ignite their engines, and then they will then angle up and begin to ascend to about up to 2,200 meters, or excuse me, 22,000 meters, so 22 kilometers above the surface. That's variable, so typically it can range from anywhere between 12,000 and 22,000 meters. And then from there, once it levels out, it will begin a cruise phase during which the rocket engine will be firing continuously to provide the sustainer propulsion. And then once it gets into the terminal phase of flight, fairly close to its target, so we're talking probably on the order of 20 to 30 kilometers or so from its target, depending on the exact cruising altitude, it will then begin to dive on its target from that high altitude at an angle somewhere between 30 and 40 degrees. The numbers seem to be a little bit all over the place for its actual terminal velocity and descent. I've seen anything between Mach about 2.5-ish to Mach 3.5 to Mach 4.0, depending on what source you believe, depending on if you believe the published Russian figures, the marketing figures or not, or if you want to dig more deeply into that. But in any case, based upon the
Are they selling this missile to somewhere, or by marketing you mean like open source data? Trying to understand.
yeah, sorry, that I should have clarified. I don't think they ever exported the KH-22 or the 32 for that matter. I mean in terms of the public statements released by the manufacturer and various different, quote unquote official Russian sources that have published data on it. So, my understanding, based upon the data I've seen for the Dnipro apartment strike, it looks like, based upon the various videos that were released of the actual impact, it looks like it probably came somewhere from the northeast. So, somewhere, it was almost certainly launched within Russian airspace over Russia itself. The best estimate that I saw was somewhere in the vicinity of Kursk, somewhere in Kursk Oblast or in the immediate surrounding Oblast. That seems to be the most likely candidate area. So from there, it would have flown south, cruised at a velocity of somewhere between, say, Mach 1.5 and Mach 2, and then about, say, somewhere between 20 to 40 kilometers from Dnipro, it would have begun its terminal descent and descended about with a terminal velocity of somewhere in the ballpark of, say, 2.5 to 3, Mach 2.5 to Mach 3.5, and it looks like it executed a very steep dive, probably around 40 degrees off the surface, maybe a little bit more, and impacted the apartment building, detonating. The original KH-22 has a either 900 kilogram or 1,000 kilogram shaped charge warhead. The KH-32 has a 400 to 500 kilogram warhead, if I remember correctly. They reduced the warhead mass by about half in order to extend the range. That was the one of the main performance enhancements offered by the 32 upgrade, in addition to some greater resistance to electronic warfare and electronic countermeasures. So that would definitely be enough to cause a massive amount of damage to that apartment building. 1,000 kilogram shaped charge warhead is no joke. That is what is that? That's literally a metric ton of high explosive.
Yep, it sure is. So here's my question. Does the missile, do you designate a target, or do you shoot it at an area and the missile takes over, or how does it find where it's going to land, or is it just random? Does it just fall at random?
So, with the original KH-22A, my understanding is that the launching aircraft, originally I believe the Tu-16 and I think the original Tu-22, I think they both could launch it as well as the only remaining launch platform is the 22 M3. All of those have an onboard radar system. I believe the general procedure was that the aircraft's radar would first acquire the target, presumably an enemy warship. That data would then be uploaded into the missile. The missile would be launched, and during cruise phase, once it began cruise phase after finishing ascent, it would then attempt to autonomously reacquire the target based upon the data it was provided at launch with its own active radar seeker, and then from there it will try to scan and search for the target while it's in cruise phase, and then finally, once it reaches motor burnout, or once it's about 20 to 40 kilometers from the target, that's when it begins its dive. Now, for the versions with INS and inertial navigation system, I'm not sure if you can just designate or input, I should say, preset coordinates at launch. It would make sense if that's how it works. The precision of INS on its own is not fantastic, especially for long flight times, because the error or the drift on an INS is proportional to the square of time. So the error from whatever its intended target is, it will quadruple as every single time that you double flight time. So it gets very imprecise very quickly. So I imagine there is probably some system for the land attack versions to upload the general target coordinates into the INS, launch the missile, and then once it's actually in cruise or on terminal descent, then the active radar seeker will attempt to acquire and home in on the largest radio return that it can find in its field of view, in the seeker's field of view, I should say.
Okay, and can these missiles be shot down?
So it depends on what you're trying to shoot it down with, obviously. So the S-300P, and I think likely the S-300V systems as well that Ukraine has, so the SA-10 and the SA-12, they have some capacity to do it, although it's quite limited. There have been reported successful interceptions of KH-22s and 32s before. Unfortunately, I don't have a good sense of what the overall rate is of intercepted versus total number launched. It's certainly based upon the altitude, the flight profile, the velocity, as well as its sheer size and durability. It's going to be at the edge of S-300P's capabilities, likely S-300V's as well. So even if they can be intercepted, the interceptions won't occur, or successful interceptions won't occur as reliably. So you're going to have a lesser probability of a successful engagement compared to, say, an engagement against a Caliber or KH-101 or KH-555 for that matter. The other issue is, even if you hit the missile, given how large it is and the fact that it's of a relatively sturdy construction, combined with the fact that a 5B55 interceptor from S-300P or a 9M83 interceptor from S-300V, both of those are proximity-fused blast frag warheads. Again, given the construction of a KH-22, especially if it's in terminal descent, it's going to be very difficult for one of those interceptors to destroy the KH-22 outright without leaving the warhead and its fusing intact. And the issue there is, obviously, even if you say destroy the main body of the missile, but the warhead and its fusing remains intact, and it continues along more or less the same trajectory, then it can still potentially impact either the target or the vicinity of the target and detonate. That's a major concern, for example, with ballistic missile defense. That's why the U.S. invested in what are known as hit-to-kill interceptors. So rather than having an explosive warhead, they directly physically impact the target to guarantee a greater probability of warhead destruction, as well as to more significantly alter the flight path of the debris that's created in the aftermath, so it doesn't just all follow the same ballistic trajectory that the missile was originally on. Something like that. So, for example, PAC-3 or PAC-3 MSE would be ideal for intercepting a KH-22 because they have those hit-to-kill warheads, and they certainly have the kinetic envelope to carry out a successful engagement. They have the in-game maneuverability, and that HTK warhead has the ability to ensure that there is a high likelihood of a kill that actually destroys the fusing in the warhead.
Okay, thank you. And what was the size of that warhead again? It's 1,000 kilograms, right?
Yeah, for the standard 22, it's about 900 to 1,000 kilograms. Sources differ on that. And for the 32, it's, my memory serves, it's 400 to 500 kilos.
Okay, so that was a topic that's been talked about a lot recently.
Quick question: over Dnipro, can you could you identify any targets that Russians could have been targeting around that district? Is there anything in the proximity of 500 meters around that home? Do you have a location of it?
Oh, go ahead, Andrew. Sorry.
The location was roughly here-ish. I can't remember the exact spot, but it was here, I think. So I guess the circle would have to be here. I don't know. John, do you know any of potential targets here?
So that's what I'm trying to think and look at right now. I mean, the most logical thing to look for would be any kind of a major electrical infrastructure in the area. The CEP on these things is on the order of 500 meters to a kilometer, so I would say look for anything within about a kilometer of the impact site.
There is I believe this is a power plant right across the river.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, then that was probably the intended target.
Can you measure the distance between the house and the power plant?
So it's on the other side of the river, correct?
Yeah, it's like 3 or 4 kilometers.
That's, I will tell you, a large miscalculation. My personal take is that they were. First of all, there are a lot of smaller substations, those transformator yards. I think it's called switch yards around. So I would not say that they were maybe targeting that specific plant, but maybe some switch yard that is closer. But my personal take is that they were not. They will literally shoot in the house. I don't think that right now they are at the point where they can. They're just terrorizing right now. It's a mix of terrorize attack and infrastructure attacks. That's my personal take on it. Because they just. I mean, if it has 500 meter radius, and even this power plant is size of that you're showing is 1 kilometer by 2 kilometers, and okay, you're gonna hit the power station, it's gonna land somewhere in the yard, not exactly what you want to do. I simply don't think that they're targeting anymore the infrastructure. I think they gave up. It's just there now.
Well, I can say that the same day of that attack, they did take out an entire power plant. What day was that? Was it the 14th?
I believe so.
So this was the building.
Which power plant?
I think it was in it's one of these two. I think. I actually can't remember which power plant it was. They hit so many power plants, I can't keep them straight. It was they hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I remember, I think it was this power plant. I think maybe that's not a power plant. Anyway, I can't remember. But they hit the turbine room of the power plant and they took out over half the turbines. And the power plant's it's destroyed. It's gone. I'm pretty sure. I think that would take years to repair.
You'd be surprised.
Taking out the entire turbine room, that's where you're gonna get 10 new turbines.
Well, we'll see how that, were there pictures from the sign inside the room?
No, the
Machine room.
closest pictures I've seen were from like 1 or 2 kilometers away.
Because there is like taking out the turbine room, you can damage equipment there, but the turbine itself may actually be intact. It's just equipment around it. It all depends. You have to see the damage.
Yep, well, that's true. But I will say that the Ukrainian government has basically said that the result of the damage is pretty catastrophic for that power plant.
Yeah, I remember. Keep in mind, we always would say that. That's even if it's not catastrophic, I would say that as well. And that's like we need publicity of this. They
But
know with like
this was
Go
the
ahead.
exact building that was hit. I located it that day.
It was
so-
launched from Kursk, so it was launched from south, from north. Sorry.
For the
Yes, it
the
was.
strike on Dnipro, that seemed likely based upon the range, the public range numbers for the KH-22.
From
Yeah, so it seems right, but
from what I understand, most of the missiles were launched from the north. They all came. Most of them came from the north. I think there were a few calibers from the south, but the rest, I believe, all came from the north.
One other thing to keep in mind about the public reporting from the Ukrainian government and reputable Ukrainian sources on the damage from some of these strikes is one of the things that's been fairly well documented at this point in the public sphere. Rusi covered it in great detail in the paper that they did on the events of the first 4 to 5 months of the war, is that Russia's ability to do battle damage assessments is not what you they do not have the capability to perform as extensive battle damage assessments as you would expect. And so one of the major items that they rely on, they relied on it more heavily at the beginning of the war. They've been able to diversify somewhat, but it seems that they still rely quite heavily on it, is they have been using intercepted Ukrainian communications to determine whether or not a target was successfully destroyed or damaged, i.e. they would determine that a target had been successfully destroyed if intercepted Ukrainian communications referenced it being destroyed, and this has led to all sorts of fun stuff where everything is just automatically reported as destroyed to confuse the Russians as much as possible.
But you're talking about real-time data, right?
Yeah, more so on like non-public communications, things that are being actively intercepted by the Russians, i.e. Ukrainian military and government communications. But I can totally imagine that they would want the publicly released information to more or less, if they are intentionally attempting to deceive the Russians, that they would want, obviously, the information that they're releasing publicly to be consistent with whatever false information they're intentionally releasing on secure communications channels that they believe have been compromised.
So, John, we have a question. I don't know if anyone actually asked this specifically, but I'm asking for them. But why do you think it takes them the time it takes between their missile strikes? Do they have to program the missiles? Are they finding targets? Like, why do you think it's the time?
Okay, so I think it's a couple things. So I think part of the timing is from the time taken to collect the data that goes into route planning for the cruise missiles. Part B is the actual time taken to physically perform the route planning, i.e. for a bunch of computer nerds to sit down, be given the target location and the approximate launch area, and then from there compute a predefined flight route for the cruise missile to follow. And then the third part is actually physically finding the cruise missiles and transporting them to wherever the launching aircraft are sorting from, or wherever the Russian surface combatants or submarines that are launching them are currently operating from. So the first part is going to consist of, for example, Russian aircraft and other Russian ISR assets, and in coordination with other Russian assets, trying to bait Ukrainian air defense sites into activating their radars, so that way they can determine their approximate locations. And ideally, the line of thinking there is to combine that with human intelligence and any other sources of collections that they may have, and to attempt to identify Ukrainian surface-to-air missile sites and other air defense sites, so that way they can route their cruise missiles around them and try to avoid them as much as possible. Obviously, the efficacy of this is limited by the fact that basically all of Ukraine's air defense assets are highly mobile and redeploy almost universally after carrying out an engagement. So if a Ukrainian air defense site, if they turn on their radars, they will displace as soon as the engagement is completed. So that dramatically limits the effectiveness of that, but the Russians still definitely try to do it. This is, for example, why the Russians will sortie MiG-31Ks armed with Kinzhal air-launched ballistic missiles. They will get those airborne on station, armed with live missiles over Belarus, to not actually launch them. When the reports of that come out, you may notice that they're usually accompanied by an A-50U mainstay, which is the Russian airborne early warning control aircraft. So think of it as the Russian analogy to AWACS. It's a large radar mounted on a plane, and it's very long range. And the whole idea there is that they attempt to use the MiG-31s armed with the Kinzhals to bait Ukrainian air defense assets into activating their radars. That way they can be detected and located by the A-50U. That then gets plugged into the whole route planning process and used to generate these cruise missile routes. The second part is the actual route planning itself. It's a somewhat time-consuming process because at a minimum, they have to do a full route simulation for each individual cruise missile and its individual route to minimize the error that they would expect to get following that route. So in other words, to maximize the final precision that they will have on its target, they have to do a bunch of rounds of simulations of actually flying that route, using various numerical computational methods. And that obviously takes time, just computationally speaking, as well as the fact they have to do it for 60 to 70 cruise missiles for each of these saturation strikes. And then the third part is actually physically finding and transporting those 60 to 70 cruise missiles. I don't think the Russians even know where they have all of their remaining cruise missiles. I think they're sort of scattered all over the place, and it physically takes them some time to actually assess what their existing inventory is and where everything physically is, so that way they can then select how many they want to deploy, which ones they want to deploy, and then transport those from whatever depots they're stored in to wherever, to whatever aircraft or surface vessels or submarines will actually be launching them. And there's also, I imagine, some delay also built into the target selection process. So, especially, for example, if they're trying to prosecute a target that they've already struck repeatedly, the time that it takes to properly perform that selection will depend on how quickly they can perform an effective battle damage assessment, what they believe is the current state of that facility, what repairs have been carried out, again, if it's already been struck more than once, etc. All those factors go into it, and all those things take time to execute.
Okay. Thank you for the explanation. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions to ask? Because I'm more or less out of topics. So one follow up question would be how trustworthy do you think are the estimates for their remaining missile stocks?
Oh boy, the $1,000,000 question. So I've tried to do a bunch of modeling on this for the Caliber, KH-101, and 5.55 stocks. I haven't touched the 22 and 32 stocks as of yet. But so the numbers that I've seen, the numbers from the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, so the official Ukrainian government estimate is, or public estimate, I should say, is that they have around, as of about a week or so ago, they have around 230 KH-101/5.55s and calibers remaining in inventory. That was more or less what I had initially predicted in November, based upon the amount that they had the estimated amount they had inventory, and then combined with estimated production and the then current expenditure rate, assuming that held constant, which it seemed to. So that number seems broadly consistent with the figures that they released beforehand. They have around 100, 150 Iskander. Well, Iskander-M is technically the whole system. The ballistic missile has a Grau index that I can't remember. I'm just going to call the ballistic missile Iskander-M. They have around 100, 150 of those remaining in inventory, and then I want to say they have 50 of the Iskander-K ground-launched cruise missiles, according to the official Ukrainian estimates. All those fairly reasonable. The estimates that I saw for annual production were, was it 480 total annually, that broken down into, I believe, what was it? I can't remember what the breakdown was off the top of my head. It might have been more than 480, but I want to say that the estimate was up to around 15 calibers per month and around 25 KH-101s per month. I did a thread on this. I need to find the numbers because I do not remember them off the top of my head.
Yeah, I remember it's like roughly like, but between each type of missile, it's like somewhere between like 30 and 50, depending on the type.
Yeah, the total amount that they can sustain, the total monthly production is currently somewhere between 40 and 50, according to the official estimate. Now, the unofficial estimate is a little bit higher than that. The fundamental rate limiting step for production is going to be turbofan production, so the actual engines used by the cruise missiles. There will be some rate limiting potentially from microelectronics availability for manufacturing the guidance packages and some of the other control circuits that are used to, for example, actuate the various aerodynamic surfaces on the missile. Some microelectronics for the fusing system, etc., things like that. But there will be some rate limiting from the microelectronics and the guidance system, but most of it's probably going to come from those manufacturing those turbofans. The estimates that I saw for Russian annual turbofan production capacity across the three different types they produce were between 500 and 1,500 annually. 500 tracks with the official Ukrainian estimate for total cruise missile production. 1,500 is the theoretical upper bound. It's unclear that they would ever be able to achieve close to that, especially given the context of the current sanctions regime. Russia kind of is in a hole production-wise for them because of the fact that prior to around the early 2000s, Russia did not have an indigenous domestic capability to manufacture small turbofan engines for cruise missiles. Because when it was still all the Soviet Union, all of the manufacturing centers for small turbofans for cruise missiles, all of that was located in Ukraine. So when the USSR dissolved, Ukraine gained the capacity to manufacture like 1,500 to 2,000 turbofans for cruise missiles annually, while Russia gained the capacity to manufacture 0 turbofans per year. So they had to basically build that capacity from scratch whereas because all of it was essentially located in Motor Sich and Zaporizhia. Unfortunately, Ukraine's capacity to produce those turbofans diminished greatly over the years, just given the general socioeconomic conditions and the geopolitical circumstances of the 90s and of the 2000s. But Russia is severely rate limited there. They can really only sustain, again, if these numbers are accurate, somewhere between 40 and 50 cruise missiles expended per month of caliber KH-101, KH-555. They aren't producing the KH-22 anymore. The big concern in the long run will be the S-300s, of which they have 8,000 interceptors. I haven't seen a breakdown of those between the 5V55 interceptors, which is the original interceptor series, and the more recent 48 and 6 series, but those are going to be the more significant problem going forward, just because of how many they have.
Okay, so yeah, I don't know what to add. It just seems to me that people assume that Russia will have infinite missiles forever, which I don't think is possible, but I guess we'll see.
One thing I do want to point out, because I'm reading through the chat right now, there's some discussions about Ukraine's ABM capabilities. Ukraine does have some currently existing ABM capabilities. They have 2 to 3 S-300V battalions. The S-300V does have anti-ballistic missile capabilities. I don't know if Ukraine has been using those. They've intercepted some Iskander-Ms before, so I would have to assume that they are probably using those for their ABM capacity to some extent. The 3 Patriot batteries they will be receiving obviously have ABM capabilities with PAC-2, PAC-3, PAC-3 MSE, etc. STAMP-T with the Aster 15 and Aster 30 interceptors has an excellent ABM capability. And more interestingly, Greece is currently sitting on, a whole regiment of S-300 PMU-1s, so the SA-20A. The S-300 PMU-1 was the member of the S-300P series that ABM capability was introduced on. So if Greece delivers those in exchange for the deployment of one or more U.S. Patriot battalions to Crete, then that would potentially be 4 more ABM-capable systems for Ukraine.
And that would be fantastic, too. Because it seems that, if we just look at the numbers, obviously Russia has the vast majority of their missiles that they can use in ground attack are ballistic missiles at this point, because they have, 6,000 of them, right? So,
yeah, it's a lot. Oh, and just because I want to provide an excellent point of comparison, Russia, at their current capacity, is again producing around 500 cruise missiles per year, and that's under wartime conditions. I've seen the content of some Russian defense orders that have been published by some Ukrainian journalists that have some longer-term production targets. But at present, their wartime production capacity is, again, around about 500 cruise missiles 500 to 600 cruise missiles per year. In contrast, the United States can produce, I think we're currently building out capacity to produce 1,100 AGM-158 air-launched cruise missiles and the AGM-158C, which is the anti-shipping variant of that cruise missile, annually. And that's peacetime capacity, and that's not even addressing Tomahawk land attack missile annual production capacity. So Russia's ability to produce these is honestly comically small, all things considered.
And they're and we don't even know if they can sustain this over time because of all of the various limitations they may have. Not the least of which is that they're losing skilled labor. Both sending skilled labor to their death in war, and also people choosing to leave the country and bring their skills to somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, brain drain. It has been a long-term issue in Russia, particularly in the aerospace industry. The average aerospace engineer or, say, applied physicist in Russia, they don't make that much money, all things considered. The figure that I saw, Navalny's group, they put out a very interesting piece on this last year about corruption in the Russian aerospace industry, and they had some really good data points there. One of them was that, on average, the typical Russian aerospace engineer makes about the equivalent of $10,000 annually. Obviously, the cost of living in Russia is lower than, say, in the U.S., so 10,000 isn't as tiny an amount as it would seem to, say, the average American, but it's still not that great considering that Rogozin makes 500,000 to $1 million a year, and again, that's on top of on a cheaper standard of living. So there's a massive graft and corruption within the Russian aerospace industry. So a lot of qualified people have left over the past 30 years. That's obviously accelerated since the invasion began. The Russian government was trying to implement migration controls to prevent IT individuals and other qualified technical individuals from leaving the country. I'm not sure how successful those have been either way. And then there also seems to be in the mobilization process, they don't seem to have been overly picky, shall we say, with who they've sent to the front line. I mean, we've seen that within sending neurosurgeons in as basically cannon fodder infantry.
Well, we can say that they have been picky, and their favorite person to draft is someone who is regularly employed at a factory, because they're the easiest person to snatch. You send your goons to the factory, and when people roll up in the morning, you throw them in the back of the bus, right?
That's true, but I would suggest that there are some factories that are immune to that, and military production factories, such as the one that producing missiles, I would expect them to be immune to this because we had you can put reservation on someone, and it means that he cannot be mobilized. Almost every government installation has this quota basically on the people that they can exclude from mobilization. But it's mostly problems with other factors that work on the economy, not on the missile production. But the brain drain is a huge problem because a lot of people, they run away, and people keep retiring. Also, the components are a problem, and Russian budget is not limitless. During the Cold War, I think they used 30% of their GDP to produce to build the military-industrial complex. Right now, they have war, and they cannot afford to use 30%, and their budget is much lower right now as well because of the oil prices. They fell once again. Do you know what are the oil prices right now for the Urals brand?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Konstantin. I imagine they have probably exempted a lot of those critical defense workers from mobilization, even if some have found their way into the trenches somewhere east of Bakhmut. But yeah, it would seem that cruise missile production is continuing along with a number of these other items. So clearly, they do have some sort of semi-functional system in place to retain existing labor. There was one other thing, Andrew, if you don't mind, that I saw being discussed in the chat that I really wanted to talk about, and that is production of S-300 interceptors in Ukraine, or new build production, or new build S-300 interceptors being supplied to Ukraine, if you don't mind.
Yep, go for it.
So, as of the beginning of the year, Ukraine did not have the domestic ability, at least nothing that was publicly known, to manufacture any interceptor for S-300. They did not have the ability to manufacture the 5V, 5.5 series interceptors. Now, the interesting thing is that they used to be able to. The Vizar plant near Kyiv, that facility produced the 5V55, I think, K interceptor, which is the original 5V55. They produced that up until 1995 before the production line was shut down. My understanding is that the technology to produce those interceptors was never really exported outside the Soviet Union. I think it was potentially exported to China, or potentially the Chinese just reverse engineered the export interceptors that they had bought from the Soviet, or that they had bought from Russia. But as far as I'm aware, that production capacity never really existed outside what is now the former Soviet Union. So in terms of being able to acquire them new build from somewhere else from existing manufacturing capacity, I don't think that's probably not going to be possible. However, there has been some discussion that new production lines could have been set up either in Ukraine or outside of Ukraine post-invasion. That would obviously be a promising development if that occurred. I haven't seen anything indicates that it has, and if I had, that was anything specific, I wouldn't talk about it. But what I can say, just kind of from an engineering standpoint, it's probably feasible. The main issue would be from a design standpoint, the fact that the 5V55 interceptor was originally designed to incorporate lots of components, particularly electronics, that are no longer manufactured anymore. So trying to set up a production line and a corresponding logistical base and a supply chain for said production line would likely be problematic because they would have to source some very, very old types of kit or components that are not really manufactured in large quantities anymore. So they would likely need to do a full-scale redesign of the 5V55 to replace all those components with more modern ones that are easier to acquire. That's obviously going to put a bigger lead time on things, and given the circumstances, it might be more straightforward to just simply design a new interceptor. There was a bunch of design work done by a couple of Ukrainian defense corporations on converting the Vilha, or Alder in Ukrainian, MRL, multiple rocket launch missile for their 300 millimeter BM-30 Smerch systems, to convert that into a surface-to-air missile. Basically, just use the main body of the missile as the interceptor, and add on a guidance package taken from the modernization that they did of some of their S-125 systems. So that would have an active radar seeker, inertial navigation system, and a data link. And given that the diameter is only 300 meters, you could potentially try or quad pack them in a canister to be mounted on a S-300 TEL transporter erector launcher. So that's potentially an option, or they could potentially pursue integration of NATO standard surface-to-air missiles with S-300. That would be a very tricky proposition, but potentially doable. We've already seen them integrate Sea Sparrow with their Buk systems. Poland and Czechia have experience integrating Sea Sparrow, Evolved Sea Sparrow, and Ispide 2000 with their Kub systems, Kub being the immediate predecessor of Buk. So those types of conversions definitely exist. They're definitely feasible. Whether or not that's happening, I have no idea. Hopefully actions like that are being taken, but there are some options there to preserve the capabilities of Ukraine's existing legacy Soviet surface-to-air missile systems, as well as the availability of interceptors for those systems. There's a range of options there, although they all have fairly significant lead times.
So we have another question. Have you heard anything about the Krim 2?
Oh boy. So Sapson, or Krim 2 being the export version of it, the reduced range export model. I have not heard anything about that in a while. The last published story that I saw on it was in September concerning events as of July. Since then, it's been a total black hole. I have seen nothing. The rumor was, based upon some things from some Ukrainian mill bloggers and a couple of other sources, was that there were 1 to 2 functional transporter erector launchers for Sapson or Krim 2 running around somewhere in Ukraine. The Russians were trying. The FSB had an entire group. They had an entire unit set up to tracking them down, as far as we can tell, unsuccessfully. It's an open question whether or not they had functional missiles for those launchers, but it seems probable they probably did have one functional TEL somewhere as of February 24th that they had, hidden somewhere. So the status of the program is kind of a big black hole at this point.
And that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
Okay, so do we have any more missile questions?
I have a quick one. Would you say that from what you know about the Hrim 2 or Sapsan, would you say that Ukraine could have had, for example, some additional parts or components, electronics and other stuff like open to buy from the West, so it could build enhance the capabilities and start the production if Vizar was for example some of it was destroyed where those components were manufactured, or simply used to upgrade the missile to a new to be better.
Right. So my understanding is that the main production facilities were mainly in Dnipro and Pavlorad. The motor production, warhead production, Pavlorad were both in Pavlorad. I know one of those facilities was hit. That's all public domain info. Pivdenmash and KB Pivdini, Pivdenmash being the primary manufacturer, KB Pivdini being the primary design office that is responsible for the program. Both of those facilities have been bombed multiple times. The guidance package and the electronics, I believe they were manufactured elsewhere by some different entities in Ukraine's defense industry. I don't have good info on that. So I don't know what the state of those is, or at least in terms of public info. It's definitely possible that, at least technically, that the US or some other NATO member could have supplied the guidance technology. So, for example, the GPS receivers, the inertial measurement unit, or just a full-scale inertial navigation system and associated software to produce a guidance package, a very high-performant guidance package for Sapson. That's certainly a possibility. The one thing I would caution there, though, is that typically that technology is considered extremely sensitive. For example, the latest guidance package technology that we use in ATACMS, we have consistently refused to export that technology to even some of our closest allies. We refused to export it to South Korea for years. We had exported the guidance tech for the original 160 kilometer range ATACMS, but not the stuff for the more modern 300 kilometer range ATACMS variants. So they were forced to develop their own guidance technology domestically. So given that South Korea is one of the United States' closest allies, the fact that we refuse to export them that technology is an indicator of just how sensitive that the U.S. government considers it. So it's possible. I just don't know if there would be a willingness in the Department of Defense and the National Security Council to go for it. If they did greenlight it, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, etc., any of them could develop a guidance package for Sapson or Hrim in quite literally days. That's no problem whatsoever from a technical standpoint.
All right, thanks.
Okay, so there was one question about whether you think countries are giving Patriots because Ukraine is running out of their Soviet missiles.
That's definitely a possibility. I don't. There isn't any definitive information available that is the case. Obviously, in the absence of any indications of new build production for some of these older Soviet legacy interceptors, one can logically assume that they have obviously at this point burned through a very large number of them. So presumably they would likely be starting to get concerned about their remaining inventory around about this point. Now that we're about 11 months in, given the number that they would have fired by this point, we can kind of infer this from the adaptation of the Sea Sparrow to Book. There's lots and lots of Sea Sparrows running around now that integration has been completed, and once the modifications are performed to as many Ukrainian Book systems as is needed, that will dramatically ease any inventory issues for those interceptors for Book. So I think that's definitely one of the factors, but I'm not willing to say it's the only factor.
Yeah, I am, and personally, I think they're giving Patriots just because Ukraine's biggest threat is becoming ballistic missiles. So, to me, it would make sense to give them a weapon capable of taking out ballistic missiles.
Definitely agreed, and it also buttresses them against the cruise missile threat and the full spectrum of airborne threats in general. And I also, the public reporting seemed to be that there was concern that the infrastructure strikes were going to start to produce meaningful effects to Russia's benefit. That was the sense that I got, at least from the public reporting, when the first Patriot battery from the U.S. was announced, that there was concern in the White House and the National Security Council that was going to begin to develop seriously to Ukraine's detriment, that ultimately helped provoke the decision to be made to send them over. I don't know whether or not that's actually true, but that was kind of the underlying implication with the reporting surrounding that.
Do you think the United States will send cruise missiles to Ukraine?
So if we're willing to send, I would say that we would send ATACMS first, just simply based upon the fact that ATACMS is older than JASSM. We are currently in the process of beginning to replace ATACMS with PrSM, Precision Strike Missile, which is the better in basically every single way for the most part. JASSM is still quite new, and it's still very much an active U.S. service, and we're continuing to develop new variants of it to put into service for various different roles. It's also a low observable design. It's relatively modern, it's relatively sophisticated. ATACMS is decades old. We've had the 300 kilometer variant for quite a while now, with its sub 2 meter circular error probable, so fantastic precision. So I have a sense that the U.S. would be a lot more willing to risk, say, some ATACMS technology falling into Russian hands than, say, JASSM technology. So, and there's also just the practical risk of interception. Russian air defenses, while they may be underperforming, they are still decently effective against aerodynamic targets. There's a reason that Ukrainian aircraft do not fly very many penetration missions into Russian missile engagement zones, because Russian ground-based air defenses can be quite lethal. Obviously, cruise missiles would be more likely to be intercepted by Russian air defenses than a ballistic missile like ATACMS. So there's obviously inventory concerns of how many would need to be provided to Ukraine, relative to our available inventory that we could potentially provide. You have to take into account how many would need to be launched on average to achieve the desired effect on target, and ATACMS may simply have a more favorable calculus there.
Now, one benefit to giving cruise missiles, even if we gave garbage tier cruise missiles, would be that we would be forcing Russia to use their missiles like the S-300 in an air defense role as opposed to their ground attack. So you could be kind of backdooring the Russia's weapon stocks that way.
So that's an interesting idea. In terms of actual inventory depletion, that's probably not the best approach per se, just because they have so many thousands of interceptors.
Yeah.
I don't think the U.S. government has a particular appetite to just cough up 6,000 cruise missiles to Ukraine.
Well, I mean, like, why can't we make those little stupid Iranian ones?
Oh my God, the Shahed 136 knockoff. I mean, the new drone or UAV or loitering munition, whatever it's going to end up being from Ukboro. Konstantin, can you help me out with the pronunciation of Ukraine's national defense conglomerate? Is it Ukrboronoproom? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Ukroboronprom.
Ukrboronoproom. Okay. Got it.
Ukroboron is oborona defense,
Okay.
and prom is industry. So Ukroboronprom. It's
Okay,
three
got it.
words. Three words.
Thank
I
you.
don't think you did.
Ukrboronoproom. Is that right?
Yeah, that's actually much better now.
Okay, wonderful. So the UAV / loitering munition that they're working on with the claimed 1,000-kilometer range, that could definitely fulfill that role. Granted, I don't know what the manufacturing capacity would end up being for those compared to, say, the Shaheds, but they could certainly be used to fill a similar role if large-scale manufacturing of those could be set up. And there's also, the ADM 160, I think, MALDs or the MALD Js, which are basically air-launched decoys that have radar emitters that can mimic the radar returns of various different aircraft. They're supposed to be able to mimic NATO standard aircraft, but they could probably be reprogrammed to mimic Soviet, Ukrainian / Russian aircraft. And that would be a whole world of fun for Russian air defenses trying to discern, is that just a flying decoy or is that actual Ukrainian MiG-29?
Okay. So we've been going for 2.5 hours now, and unless you have any last comment, I think 2.5 hours is long enough. So, Constantine, do you have any last thing to say?
I want to say thank you everyone for coming. It was fun. Thank you, Henry, for your map. Thank you, John, for your expertise on the missiles. And yeah, it was great. We had a great time, I think.
John?
Well, this is my first time doing it. It was an absolute pleasure talking to both of you and being on this stream. Hopefully, look forward to doing this again with y'all next time.
Okay. Well, thank you both for coming, and thank you for everyone listening. We will have another stream on Thursday. It may not be this format. We kind of just wing the format every time. But anyways, right. So thank you, everybody, and talk to you later.
Bye.